it is my great pleasure to introduce lead system architect Mark Cerny.
Mark Cerny was something of a prodigy, attending UC Berkeley when he was 16, studying maths and physics. But he left at the age of 17 to pursue his love of games, taking a job at Atari. Since then, he's worked for Sega and consulted on a wide range of Sony titles, from Crash Bandicoot to Uncharted. Now, Cerny is the lead system architect of the PlayStation 4. And last week I talked to him about the console's lineup of games and how the PS4 will mature in those early years. But in this first part, we discussed the hardware itself.
Ever since the original announcement event in New York, games have always been very prominent in all the presentations. But consoles are used for a myriad of things. People stream entertainment on them as well, like Netflix is quite popular. Was that ever part of the design brief, or was it always Sony wanted this as a pure games console?
Definitely, you can use it as a device to watch media. It's just that its primary function is as a games machine.
When did you first get to see the actual design of the PlayStation 4, the box, the external?
I saw the box for the same time as the rest of the world. They've been offering to show it to me. I mean, I knew how big it was because that's based on power consumption, and I knew how many watts we were burning. But I waited until our E3 press conference because I wanted to see it with the rest of the world.
So the internal architecture informed certain elements of that design?
Well, it's just the power consumption establishes how large the console needs to be. Okay. The fact that it's smaller than PlayStation 3 is a consequence of it using less power.
At your develop keynote, you talked about sort of emulating what Nintendo did, a group of people who worked together for a period of time to define the values of a company, and that's something Sony are trying to do. It's not long ago that Sony and PlayStation was the new boy, and it was yet to forge an identity. What I want to ask you about is, what is PlayStation's identity now?
I really believe that the variety of experience is key with PlayStation. That is what brings many people to the Sony consoles.
Something that's been mentioned, but with the next generation of consoles, is using the cloud to do kind of computing and making consoles more powerful over time. I've spoken to some friends of mine who are developers, and they've said that they basically think that's nonsense. Is there something to that? Is that something that PlayStation 4 could eventually harness, or is it?
Well, I mean, to the extent that it's possible to do computing in the cloud, PlayStation 4 can do computing in the cloud. I mean, we do some things today. Matchmaking is done in the cloud, and it works very well. If we think about things that don't work well, trying to boost the quality of the graphics, that won't work well in the cloud.
How involved were you with the design of the DualShock 4 and the new PlayStation camera?
So those were very, very collaborative projects. The DualShock 4, actually the collaboration extended outside of Sony Computer Entertainment for that. For the first part of that process was looking at all the different ways that you could interact with the game, and then discussing with various game teams about what they thought they could use best in their titles, and so the touchpad came out of that. But another part of that was first-person shooters are very important to us, and so we wanted to make sure that we really had a controller that was optimized for those games. And so we contacted teams across the industry who make the best of the best in that genre, and gave them prototypes and got them to evaluate them, and received guidance on what we needed to do with triggers and dead zones and the joysticks to really make it an ideal controller for FPS.
So FPS was a big consideration when designing the controller?
Well, I mean, historically, we have heard for many years that PlayStation hardware is great, but that the controller, when it comes to FPS, is not as good as others out there. And we wanted to make sure that with PlayStation 4, we really did have something that was optimal.
It's interesting that a concession like that was made. Is that due purely to the kind of the size of that genre in particular and the kind of weight it puts on the market?
Definitely FPS and TPS are big if you look at the top 10. But I think really it's more a theme about us listening as actively as possible to the developers and to the consumers about what it is that they want.